Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. My dogs both decided they needed to start the day with a pee about an hour earlier than they normally do. So, having caught up with all my sleep over the weekend, I'm now knackered once again, which is fantastic. Having said that, I think I'm having a better start to the day than our friend Peter McKenna. I asked him how he was doing, and he said he couldn't get his false leg on this morning. See, other people's problems always much more important than yours. However, I'm not going to let all that stand in our way. We have a packed show for you today, including a few machines you may not have seen before. Later today, I'll be filming the second of our BTS, that's Breakfast Show behind the scenes. The second of our shows, because the first one seems to have gone down pretty well, actually. And I'm also putting the finishing touches to our Wednesday evening show for this week that features the mighty Bobcat. I will remind you, there is a big Bobcat model up for grabs during that show, so there's even more incentive to tune in than usual. In addition to all of that, you may know that today is Amazon Prime Day. I don't know if you did know that. So there's lots of offers on offer. That didn't make any sense. Lots of offers on offer over on Amazon, including one of my books. You can actually get a discount on one of my books, which is called Renaissance, Why JCB is the Apple of the Digger World. I've just posted a link to that in the chat. Speaking of the chat, Ed Butler's just joined us. Good morning, Ed. Good morning. And to your sidekick as well, Steve Williamson. Are you together, gentlemen? You seem to have arrived at exactly the same time. Is there something we need to know, or was that just a coincidence? Now, just one more thing before we get started today. My gripe of the day is once again industry related, so you might want to stick around for that. That'll be at the end of the show. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, fingers crossed on that, and get the show on the road. It is Tuesday, the 11th of July. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. Well, I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, we're taking a closer look at a new electric mini excavator from our friends at Sunward. Caterpillar explains the benefits of its 2D grade system. We're scraping by with Metalcraft. Plus, we're going to be taken to the skies for a bird's eye view of an all-electric crane from the fine folks at Liebherr. We'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. On this day in 1859, Big Ben's second and current bell chimed for the first time. In 1922, the Hollywood Bowl opened in Los Angeles. In 1960, Harper Lee's novel To Kill a Mockingbird was first published. How's this for a fantastic day in history? In 1969, David Bowie released the single Space Oddity 9 days before Apollo 11 landed on the moon. And on the same day, the Rolling Stones released Honky Tonk Woman. Good day for music, that was. And on this day in 2010, Andres Iniesta, one of the greatest footballers of all time, scored an extra time winner as Spain beat Netherlands to win their first ever World Cup. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you of that question of the day. I'll come back to that in just a second. Wow, have you seen the scathing reviews of your book on JCB, your JCB book on Amazon, reviewed in Germany on 6th of March? Very undetailed, boring, sad. The eye catcher is the title, so it was disappointing. Half hour of reading or wasted time. I hadn't seen that. Frankly, listen, thick skin. When you put yourself out there, frankly, you get used to that kind of thing. Now I'm going to throw over to the chat a little bit more. Hi, Mark. Paul McHale is over in Singapore, just about to leave work. Nearly always miss your show. Unfortunately, obviously, the show is not timed for Singapore, but Paul, fantastic of you to join us. I hope you're fit well, my friend. I'm going to throw up this very quickly. My question of the day, just to remind you, was what is your hometown and who is the most famous person from that hometown? Bit of a double whammy this morning. I can tell you, I'm a Londoner, so I have a lot to choose from. So I would probably say David Bowie is one of our best-known exports. But being slightly more precise, I actually grew up in Battersea in South London, and so did actors Roger Moore and Timothy Spall. So what about you? What is your hometown? Who is the most famous person, aside from yourselves, obviously, that came from that hometown? Let us know in the chat. It might be just my imagination. It might be the lack of sleep, and maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention. But does anyone else get the very distinct impression that the Chinese manufacturers are making the greatest strides in the field of electric equipment?
Hello everybody, I am Hans Driessen. I work for Sunward Europe. I'm the product manager for the earth moving equipment. We are here at Plantworks 2023, and I would like to show you the 2-ton electric machine, which we display for the first time in the UK. So this is the 2-ton electric machine. It has a 20 kilowatt hour battery capacity and a 8 kilowatt power electric motor. We have two possibilities to charge the machine. The first possibility is a slow charge. It takes 7 hours. You need the power supply of a 16 amp standard wall contact, which is available in each kitchen. The second possibility to charge the machine is a fast charger, and then you can charge the machine in 1.7 hours. The machine can work between 4 to 6 hours. Of course, it depends very much about the workload of the machine. The ideal customer is the customer who wants to have a machine which has zero emissions at point of use. Applications can be to work in the city center. In the morning, it's a very quiet machine. You cannot hear it. And also for tunneling. In some countries, you have the government will help you because you need to do, for example, road construction with zero emissions.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not alone in this at Plantworks, but I saw that machine up close, and I have to say, very impressed. I originally assumed that all the Chinese manufacturers would initially grab market share on price alone, but the machines are now plenty good enough to compete on capability alone. And in the field of electric machines, I'd like to think that Sunward and XCMG are right up there with some of the very best. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Our question of the day today is, what is your hometown and who is the most famous person from that town? Now, Peter McKenna has thrown up Preston as his hometown and Eddie Calvert. Eddie Calvert, I believe, not an expert, but I believe is a trumpeter. That one I kind of knew. Glenn Johnson, however, has thrown up Banbridge, Francis Crozier. Who is Francis Crozier? Glenn, if you'd like to enlighten us, the most famous person from your hometown. Maybe it's because I'm not from Banbridge, but I don't actually know the name Francis Crozier at all, and maybe that's my problem. Now, viewers of this show love scrapers. I love scrapers, even though it's a long time since I saw one in action right here in the UK. Now, when I think of scrapers, I think of Caterpillar. More recently, I guess I'd think of K-Tech, but there is another American manufacturer that's also turning out some damn fine scrapers of their own, and this is Metalcraft.
What does it mean to be groundbreaking? Is it a rugged structural design? Is it absorbing punishing jobs, then doing it over and over again? Is it fewer breakdowns and smoother roads? Perhaps. But that's not all that makes us groundbreaking. It's what we do. At Metalcraft, we listen, we learn, we innovate. And since starting in 2004, our products have been engineered and manufactured with our customers' needs at the forefront. And the quality has always shined through. The craftsmanship behind our rugged scrapers and graders gets the job done faster and with less maintenance. So yeah, you could say we're moving a lot more than Earth. We're moving innovation forward every day for different applications all across the United States, including agriculture, construction, excavating, mining, and more. And all from our growing manufacturing facility in Louisville, Georgia. The service we bring to our customers will always be just as important as the quality of the product that we deliver. That's the Metalcraft way. So, are you ready to break ground?
Yeah, I know the name of the company sounds like a hobby group, but I have to say, I think those scrapers really look the part. What say you? What say you all in the chat? Let me know. And while you're doing that, here's one of these. Before we move on, I'm going to say good morning to Callum McIntosh, the main man at the Scottish Plant Owners Association, and a genuine hero of the industry, if he doesn't mind me saying so. Metalcraft concept for scrapers with agricultural tractor, prime mover, good news. Yep, totally agree. Now, have you ever wondered about the real benefits of grade control and driver assist systems? Well, Caterpillar clearly has. So the company has staged a side-by-side comparison to pit against each other, a machine using no tech and one using tech to its full capabilities. Let's head off to Malaga in Spain to find out more. Of course, there will still be some that claim the machine control systems make you less of an operator, but I think that productivity differential speaks for itself. What do you think? I also wondered about man with measuring stick in the top of those 3 frames. Surely we've gone beyond that point now, haven't we? We can do better than man with a stick, surely.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I'm just going to throw this one up from Dan Cullen, and it's a good point. Well made. Good morning, Dan. Obviously, just shown the Caterpillar 2D grade system, and he says it's good, but it depends on who's the machine. You're right. You're absolutely right. However, I would suggest that a system like that could take a good operator and make them a really good operator. It could take a less than good operator and bring them up a bit. Maybe not make them perfect, but certainly make them better. We'll come back to that at the end of the show. Now, cranes. I don't like to talk about cranes because they exist on the very periphery of my industry field of vision. I know they're there and I know they're important, but I just can't get excited about them in this way that some people can. Kristen Mays, cranehub.net, I'm looking at you specifically. However, this new film from those fine folks at Liebherr has me reconsidering my stance. That's a great film and an even greater machine. No great surprise. Hats off to Liebherr and everyone involved in that film. My gripe today is 100% stolen, and it comes from a comment on my latest weekly column about the health and safety executives' fatality statistics. The comment came from a mate of mine called Steve Padmore, who is within the UK demolition industry. His comment was pretty brief and to the point, so I've gilded it slightly, but here is the crux. As an industry, we like to believe that we are enlightened on health and safety. We insist that everyone allowed on site is now carrying a little piece of plastic that proves they're allowed to be there. Those individuals are decked out in PPE from head to toe. They've attended health and safety meetings, briefings, training courses, and toolbox talks. The companies for whom they work have invested a fortune to encourage what they describe as a health and safety culture. The industry is under greater health and safety scrutiny than just about any other sector you can think of. It is issued with constant warnings and subject to ever-changing initiatives warning of the dangers of falls from height, slips and trips, moving vehicles, and a plethora of other potential hazards. Yet, in the period 2022 to 2023, the UK construction sector saw a 20% rise in site fatalities year on year. 45 people lost their lives on UK demolition and construction sites in that period, compared to the 37 recorded in the previous year. What does that say for the validity of training and competence cards? What does that say about our health and safety culture? What does it say about the way in which health and safety is taught, monitored, managed, and policed? Well, to me, it says this.
It's not working.
It says that plastic cards don't protect people. Current training courses don't protect people. And social media posts about health and safety culture do not protect people either. And it says to me that the shortcomings in all these areas are costing lives. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Anyway, that's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets you going, and generally butters your parsnips? The daily gripe therapy session will return probably tomorrow, because I seem to have something to gripe about almost daily. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show, but we've got lots to talk about after the show. So I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today and to check out all your hometowns and stuff. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a great day. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around. You would be more than welcome. The Craic will begin right after this final word from our key show sponsor. Better. How are we all doing today? I tell you what, let's change things up a bit and we'll go with that. Hopefully the sound is still working. Still learning the system a bit on that. Let's have a look. I tell you what, let's go back to the very beginning of the chat because it will make more sense chronologically, I think. Ken Hatcher was first off the mark this morning, as he so often is. Looks like the sun is beginning. Oh, he's got the mixed bag. He's got the cloud, he's got the rain, but he's hoping for sunshine. The sun does shine on the righteous, Ken, so I'm sure it will be with you at some point in the not too distant future. Peter McKenna, who most certainly had the strangest start to the day amongst all of us. I'll come back to that in a second. Dan Cullen says morning all, and Chris Ford says good morning, Mark. Good morning to you, Chris. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I said that Peter McKenna had a slightly troublesome start to the day, and he did. Couldn't get my false leg on this morning, and I thought my dog's waking me up an hour early was a problem. But by comparison, I've had it fairly easy. Gary Muirhead. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys. Now, Gary Muirhead, among other things, do it the right way around. People that know, Gary actually sent me that sign, but he also sent me a goodie box of Scottish food, including Scottish tablet. I'd heard about it, I'd even read about it, but I'd never had it before. For the uninitiated, I guess it's kind of fudge-ish, like crumbly fudge. Well, it came in a pack about yay big. Okay, and I thought, wow, I've never had it before, so I snapped off a corner, put it in my mouth, and about 36 seconds later, the entire bar was gone. I inhaled the remainder. Oh my God, it's like crack laced with sugar. Currently considering relocating to Scotland just so that I've got it readily available. Please, for the love of God, for the love of my diabetes, please don't send me any more. You'd be doing me a huge disservice if you did. Glenn Johnston is in the house. Morning, Glenn. Thank you very much indeed for being here over on Facebook. Steve Williamson, half of the dynamic duo, is here. Ed Butler, the other half of the dynamic duo, is here. Morning, gents. Hope you're all fit and well. Regardless of the German review of my book, you can pick it up should you so desire if you would like to see what that's all about. The link is in the chat. Jim Turner is also in the house. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, our question of the day was this. What is your hometown and who is the most famous person from that hometown? Broadly, my hometown is London. So I'd like to claim David Bowie as one of my own. Maybe Bobby Moore as well. Maybe Mark Noble. You can tell I'm just picking people that I like now. But I'm actually from Battersea in South. I can't believe I just put two T's in Battersea. Where I come from, it's called Battersea, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, I come from Battersea in South London, or South East London, and our two most famous sons, I would guess, would probably be Roger Moore, who sounded an awful lot more posh than most people from Battersea, and Tim Spall, who doesn't. But let me know what yours are. Dan Cullen says, how is everyone this morning? Paul McHale, all the way from Singapore. Fantastic to hear from you, Paul. I hope you've had a good... Just about to leave work. We're just starting work here, obviously, but I hope you had a fantastic day. Mark Whiting is in the house. Morning, Mark. Scathing reviews on my book. I won't dwell on that, but I'm, as I say, as somebody that had a pet stalker for 2 years, frankly, a few words on the internet are not really going to bother me a huge amount. Now, question today. Ken Hatcher is from Ronvar. Am I pronouncing that right? And his most famous hometown export is none other than the great Tom Jones, Sir Tom Jones, I believe. Yeah, what a fantastic singer. I had. This sounds like I'm really name dropping, and I kind of am. I went to an event in Monte Carlo some years ago. Went out to dinner. We did the casino. We did the Prince Rainier's car collection. You know, sometimes I like to hobnob, but we got back to our hotel and Tom Jones was playing in the resort next door, and we basically sat out on the veranda looking out over the sea with this. It was obviously dark, but it was still lovely and warm, drinking champagne while Tom Jones serenaded us from next door. That's a good night out. I could recommend it. Now, Eddie Calvert is from Preston, as is Peter McKenna. Eddie Calvert, I'm fairly sure, is a trumpeter. If anyone would like to correct me on that, I'd love to hear it. Question of the day. Dan Cullen believes he is the best thing to come from his hometown. Listen, I'm not going to argue with that, Dan. You're a fine gentleman and no mistake. Eddie Calvert apparently was born on the 15th of March 1922, a true icon to music. Maybe he is a trumpeter after all. This one is going to take some beating, although somebody does beat it ultimately. Gary Muirhead is from Glasgow, and their finest export, possibly the UK's finest export, Billy Connolly. An absolute legend, no question about it. Nobody has yet told me who Francis Crozier is. But or maybe they have. I'll keep going. But Francis Crozier from Banbridge. And if anyone could shed more light on that, Sunward is quite impressive. Yeah, I have to say they do a damn fine machine. And it's there will come a time. I've seen this before. When the Japanese first arrived, they stripped the price to the barest minimum to gain market share. And then once they got market share, they then started to bring in better machines and charge a premium for their products. And that's how we've got Komatsu and Hitachi today. The Koreans did precisely the same with the first arrival of Hyundai and Doosan, as was, or Devolon as they are now. Expect the same from the Chinese. They've come in with very, very keen pricing. But as soon as their machines are on a par, and I have to say some of them already are, watch the price change. Jim Turner, question of the day, says, I'm from a village called Annesley Woodhouse. The most famous person is probably Harold Larwood, who was a cricketer that played for England. Harry or Harold Larwood most certainly is a famous cricketer. I know squat about cricket, but even I know Larwood. I think he was in the Bodyline series against Australia. Yes, he most certainly was. Our nearest town is Hucknall, and that is the birthplace of Eric Coates, who I think wrote the Dam Busters march. That's not a bad claim to fame either. I've got music playing in my ears. If I turned that off, I could probably whistle you the Dam Busters theme. I'll spare you that. A Chinese all-electric 360 capable of only 4 hours work after a 7-hour charge. No thanks, says Mick Norton. Each to their own, and you know, everybody is entitled to their opinion. All I would say is, how much work do you get out of a mini excavator, even a diesel-powered mini excavator in a day? Because you're on and you're off, and you're on and you're off. Yeah. Dan Cullen says that's a tidy bit of kit from the scrapers. Yeah, that was Metalcraft. I have to say, very impressed with that. Interesting chat this morning with a friend. 3 or 4 machines down the steelworks, Cat, JCB and Komatsu all rotten with rust. The Volvos are still like new. That is an interesting chat. Some photographic evidence would have been nice to go with that, but that's a very good point indeed. Callum McIntosh, the plant industry hero from the north of the border. Morning, Callum. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Metalcraft. I'm just going to throw back to that. Callum McIntosh. How are things coming together for your operator challenge that is now just, off the top of my head, about 11 days away, I think. Let me know. If you need it that shouted from the rooftops again, let me know. Metalcraft concept for scrapers with agricultural tractor prime mover. Good news. Totally agree. Callum McIntosh agrees as well. I have to say, I think articulated tractors with toe scrapers, very smart choice over traditional motor scrapers. Interesting stuff. Now, this 2D grade control, yeah, I can't argue with the words Dan Cullen said. It's very good, but it depends on who's on the machine. But I'll reiterate what I said when I first threw that up on the screen. I think it can make the not so good better. I think it can make the good better, and I think it can make the really good quite potentially great. That's my take on all things technology. Question of the day. Our friend Ed Butler says, Abergavenny, the late great former Welsh international Eddie Butler, who is no relation. I had to look this one up. Eddie Butler. We're talking Welsh international in rugby. I know nothing about rugby, but I had to check just in case he was a footballer that I hadn't heard of. Turns out, no, he is a rugby man, or was a rugby man. But that is impressive to have somebody from your own hometown sharing your own name. That's pretty good. Jim Turner says, GPS would be great. It means I can stay in the cab, a shifting muck, instead of being out the cab with a drawing, setting up line and level. Yeah, think about that time saving alone. You know, the getting in and getting out and the checking and a man with stick. Does anybody remember that from Vic Reeves' Big Night Out? Man with a stick? Maybe just me. Yes, I agree to your perspective too. Thank you very much indeed. Mick Norton is from Wakefield, and the most famous export from Wakefield is Barbara Hepworth. Who in tarnation is Barbara Hepworth? Somebody please tell me who Barbara Hepworth is. I'll tell you what, I'll save you the time. Barbara Hepworth. Artist and sculptor, apparently. Who knew? Not me, that's for sure. Ken Hatcher says, my Facebook is playing up today. It's because Mark Zuckerberg has spent all his money on the new Threads app, which has achieved not a great deal as far as I can tell. Can't top that one, Gary Muirhead. No, absolutely. Yeah, Billy Connolly, one of the greats, if not the greatest stand-up of all time, I think. I think it's down to the attitude of a lot of people. No one cares anymore. Even managers don't care. I guess that's a comment on my gripe about health and safety. Dan Cullen's doing fantastic today. Busy. Glad to hear it. Question of the day, Inverness. Karen Gillan. And again, I know an Ian Gillan, who was the lead singer with Deep Purple. Don't know Karen Gillan, but from the Marvel films and Jumanji films as well, and many more. I'm going to go and look her up, but Inverness. Mark, Facebook Marketplace has sellers of Scottish tablet. Don't tell me this. Don't tell me this. And depends where you are, depends on the texture. Borders is slightly softer, akin to the fudge. The further north, the harder it gets, and sometimes more crystallized. Please, for the love of God, don't tell me about this. I could quickly develop a habit, and I don't want to. My diabetic doctor would have me locked up if I were to do that. Eddie Calvert is a trumpeter. I don't know quite what dark recess of my brain I plucked that from, but I got it in the right place. Chris Ford says, Kedleston and Nathaniel Curzon, Viceroy of India. Really, really posh export from, where was it? Kedleston. Francis See, I thought Nathaniel Curzon was quite posh. Francis Rawdon Moira Crozier, Irish officer of the Royal Navy, polar explorer who participated in 6 expeditions to the Arctic and Antarctic in May 1845. Rather, he was second in command to Sir John Franklin, captain of HMS Terror during the Franklin expedition to discover the Northwest Passage, which ended up with the loss of 129 crewmen in mysterious circumstances. Mysterious circumstances. Now, was that... There was a TV series, maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago, called The Terror. And that was set in the Antarctic or the Arctic, in the ice and the snow, on a boat. Is that the same thing? One to look out for is this new Chinese tilt rotator, Katsu. As in Katsu curry. Maybe not. A lot cheaper and looks a good unit. Katsu.cn, worth a look on their website. I would go and have a dig around for that. Maybe feature them on the show at some point in the not too distant future. Katsu. I'm doing a demo today of these unbelievable buildings. Yes, I've seen some photographs on the WhatsApp group. And speaking of the WhatsApp group, if you're not already a member and you would like to be, you can do so using the link that I've just posted in the chat. Peter McKenna says, if you're into good series, look up the see, I should have read further down. The Terror. I really enjoyed that. That is, what is the guy's name? Jared Harris. Richard Harris's son, Jared Harris. Absolutely brilliant in the Terror. If I've got my series right. I'll share some pics on WhatsApp. Please do. Jim Turner. These electric machines are jumping the gun. They should be going for hybrid machines with battery and diesel. That way, an overnight charge will get you halfway through the shift, and then the engine would fire up for the rest of the day. Obviously, if working near a power source, it can be plugged in at break time. All a good point. I agree with Jim Turner, says Dan Cullen. Hybrid hydrogen would be far better fit for excavators instead of electric. What's this? Lord Byron is from Newstead Abbey, which is a neighbouring village. He's pretty famous. What, Lord Byron? Yes, he is really rather famous. Now that's a good one. My birthplace is Eastleigh, famous for Benny Hill. Benny Hill. Are we allowed to like Benny Hill anymore? Probably not. Made me laugh as a kid, though. Made me laugh a hell of a lot. Slapping a little bald fella on the head. I agree with Jim Turner. What do you agree with him on? What was Jim saying? Yes, about the electric machines jumping the gun. But there's plenty out there. There is plenty out there. Now, I'm probably going to jump the gun myself here a bit, but I'm going to do it anyway. I had a voice message this morning from Graham Williams, our dyslexic friend who is struggling to get himself a card renewal to allow him to go back to work. And he made a point about the dyslexic people. Dan Collins is back to work. No problem at all, Dan. Enjoy yourself. Have a good day. Yeah. Graham Williams made the point about what happens if all the dyslexic people, and we do believe there could be somewhere between 7 and 20,000 of them, based on the fact that dyslexic make up 1 in 10 of the UK population, apparently. What if they fail? What if they fail their exam or their test to get their cards renewed? And it set me thinking. It set me thinking not just of dyslexics. If I learned to drive back in the late 80s, I was quite late to it. My best friend drove and liked driving, so I got very lazy and let him drive me everywhere. So I didn't pass my test until I was 22, probably, which would have been about 1987 or thereabouts. So that is, I've been driving for, 36 years? 36 years. Now, over that 36 years, I have picked up a lot of very bad habits. If I were to take my driving test again today, I firmly believe I would fail. A combination of the bad habits that I picked up, the fact that we now have a theory test. I took my test long before a theory test came into being. I think some of the highway code that I learned in the run-up to my test has changed, and rules and regulations have changed. Even the cars themselves have changed. I don't think I could pass my driving test today. Does that apply in the field of construction equipment? Are some of the guys on here that have been driving for 10, 20, 30 plus years, do you think you could go to a test centre and pass the current CSCS or CPCS or CCDO card scheme? Do you think you could pass? It's an interesting point. I'm bearing in mind the fact that we already have a skill shortage. What if even if only, off the top of my head, 10% of those that are required to take the card test again or to upgrade to an MVQ, even if only 10% of them fail, the estimate suggests that there's somewhere between 70 and 200,000 people that will need this new card. We could potentially lose somewhere between 7 and 20,000 people just because the powers that be have shifted the goalposts. Can we afford to do that, do you think? Discuss, compare and contrast. D.H. Lawrence is from a stone's throw from my place. Probably wrote his books whilst wandering around or near my land. Can you imagine what a fantastic claim to fame that would be? D.H. Lawrence wrote his books while stood in a field that I now own. That's a pretty good one, I have to say. Did he not get a test mark? A guy will come and do a person CSCS. No, he is underway. I can't remember the name of the person that's doing it, but Mick Norton put him in touch with somebody. The guys reached out. The two have touched base. We're off and running. However, just as a small aside, and I do realise this is a real aside, even to the aside that we're talking about now. You may recall that Graham Williams, in addition to being dyslexic, he is blessed or cursed, depending how you feel about it, with size 17 feet. I threw over to the chat, where could Graham Williams get himself a new pair of size 17 sight boots? And I'm fairly sure it was Peter McKenna that came up with the solution. Whatever it was, I passed it on. I had a message back from Graham Williams, who said, apparently the sight boots that he was after, if you buy them in a regular size, up to about a size 10, 11, possibly even a 12, they were 45 quid. If you buy a size 17, they're 120 quid. Yeah, penalised. Financially penalised for having big plates of meat. Hardly seems fair. My dad was dyslexic, yet managed to get sergeant in the Royals North. Is that Royal North Lancs? Later amalgamated into Queen's Lancashire Regiment. Then drove a truck for 40 years. He might have been crap with words. When it came to money, he was a whiz kid. I think that's the important point here. And I liken it to school exams. You know, I studied, like I think most of us did, algebra and calculus and Christ alone knows what else, none of which I've ever used. And if you think about a lot of what an average operator will do, yes, they have to sign forms from time to time, and yes, they will be handed bits of paper and so on down the line. But 99% of what they do requires them to move levers, not to write with pen and paper. Dyslexia shouldn't be an impediment to working in the industry. It shouldn't be an impediment in society, to be perfectly honest, but it certainly shouldn't be an impediment to working in this industry. Peter McKenna says, I've had 4 driving tests: car, HGV 2, HGV 1, and ROSPA level 2 and 3 advanced driving tests. I'm fantastic with practical tests and theory tests, yet flunked in school. Everyone's good at something. I'm still trying to figure out what I am good at. Not bad at fishing. I was once 8th in the country, under 16 level. But I was, genuinely. No, I can't think of anything else. Got my 50 meter breaststroke. Those two things are not connected. I very rarely fall in when I'm fishing. I'm far too busy sleeping, to be perfectly honest. Right, people, lots and lots to be getting on with. Please don't forget that we are going to be here tomorrow night at 10 p.m. No, we're not. We're going to be here tomorrow at 10 a.m. and then we're going to be here at 7 p.m. tomorrow for our Bobcat origin story. Fred has done an absolutely fantastic job on the content for that. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. And as I say, we do have a model up for grabs as well. I'm planning at some point today to record another of our BFS BTS shows, which kind of follow on from some of the stuff that we're doing online. The first of those shows is already available over on our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube and search for Demolition News and you can watch it. I think Peter McKenna has already seen it and he's just said, have a great day. Yes, I'm going to echo his sentiments. Go and have a great day. Everybody, thank you very much indeed for your contributions today. Nice to know where you're all from. Just going to throw this up. With the cards in question, banks freely accessible on banks freely accessible on the internet and training providers training candidates for just a test pass. The bar is still set far too low for the necessary competence. And you know, that's one of the things that strikes me as the most bizarre of all this. The bar is set incredibly low because we are desperate for operators and operatives, and yet we are shifting the goalposts. You know, on the one hand, we are trying to make it as easy as possible to get new people into the industry. And on the other hand, we're making it as hard as possible for the people that are already here. How does that make any sense to us? We'll discuss that at some other point. Everybody go and have a fantastic day. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I shall speak to you very, very soon. Till then, have a great day. All the best.